The Hyperspace, Podcasting in the 25th Century presents
Cloning It In. Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to Cloning It In. Just the good ones.
Hey.
This is our new Clone Wars retrospective show. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you my name is Jared.
Hey, everybody. My name's Matt.
I'm Brian.
I'm Lindsey.
And I love the Star Wars crew.
Aw, me too.
It's the crew.
It's been a
Yeah.
while.
I
Long
know.
time.
Happy
It
New Year,
has.
everybody.
Oh,
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy Life Day. Happy New Year.
As it is measured in the old calendar.
We just did a Life Day episode, guys. It's going to
Yes,
drop
we
any,
did.
any day.
Oh.
that should be interesting.
It's one for the books. Let me tell you, I just
I'll
finished
bet.
editing it, and it's completely terrible.
Yay.
Well, I mean, you're not starting with much.
No, that's true. We're not. But so we are once again bringing Cloning It In out of retirement. Of course, we have continued Cloning It In with our Bad Batch shows, which Matt, Brian, and me record.
If Lindsay would catch up, it'd be worth doing.
We're working on it.
I'm in it now.
Listen,
Bad Batch is great.
so I got to say, the impetus for doing this show was when we were watching Ahsoka, the live action series, which came out last year. That show had a lot of plot points which were first developed in the animation from the Clone Wars and Rebels. And as the show went on, we got to thinking, well, it would be fun to go back and revisit some of these lore-heavy episodes. Me and Matt and Brian revisiting them for the first time in years, and Lindsey seeing them for the first time. Once again, getting a bunch of different perspectives on these stories. And we call it Just the Good Ones because we're not going to be following R2 and 3PO around Coruscant while they look for cake ingredients.
We might do that one.
Well, then you'll do it without me.
Zero the Hut.
I don't think
Yeah.
How's
I
old
have
Zero
time.
doing anyway?
I'm very busy. I don't think I have time to watch that one.
my name is Zero the Hut. I'm a Hut. I'm a purple Hut. I'm Jabba's cousin. And I hope Count Dooku, what are you doing here? It's seeing Zero the Hut in movie theaters was truly one of the cinematic spectacles of my lifetime. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
I know we've talked about this
Right.
before. We've talked about this before, but when Jared, Sith Lord, and I went to see
Mark,
the Clone Wars,
and Mark was with us.
and Mark, we've said this before. It was a whole theater full of kids, and then us. And when Zero came on, and you heard that accent, Sith Lord's like, it's like, what is this shit I'm watching? All the moms get all upset.
Yeah, it was great.
Real quick though, something about the Clone Wars, Lindsey. If you haven't done it, I recommend going even further back in time to when the Clone Wars was first released on the web.
The
Because
little minis. I remember when that was happening.
those Clone
Back in the
Wars
day.
episodes are, first off, the animation is wild. It's fun to watch. It's cool.
It's
And
the
they're-
hand-drawn
yeah,
stuff.
it's quick to watch, and the stories are really great. And you get some really neat inside information about, especially like Grievous and stuff with like Mace Windu and Grievous. But they're quick watches, and it was like an experiment with Star Wars that blossomed into something really amazing. And it really was the kickstart to a lot of the shows that came after it. So it's really amazing to watch, to go all the way back and
That
watch
didn't pop
those.
up. I swear that did not pop up on Disney when I opened it.
They're actually the hand-drawn Clone Wars are in there. They're just like in a different section.
Oh, okay.
So they're on Disney Plus, and yeah, they are. It's a quick watch, and they're really cool. They're not really. I don't think they're considered like
Canon?
a canon part of the
Really?
top of. Yeah, because by the time these take place, Anakin would have already been with Ahsoka. And
Oh.
so these were made in 2004 and 2005, but between episodes 2 and 3 being in theaters. So these
Oh.
were a product of that era. But anyway, so what we have decided to do is go back and watch these uh these like I say lore heavy important episodes of the Clone Wars. And we'll likely be getting into of course the Darth Maul resurrection story, which is really some very fantastic stuff as we go on. And of course most of season 7 of the Clone Wars, especially the stuff on Mandalore and Order 66, is pretty mind blowing.
We should
Great
take a
And
stuff.
deep dive.
some of that I've seen searching out myself because of The Mandalorian and other stuff.
We should
Yeah.
take some time to do some deep dives in the highly politically focused ones concerning Mandalore, as well, as they were gripping and fascinating to
Oh.
watch.
Yes, where they poisoned the tea of the school children.
Ugh,
Whoa.
And we devoted 4 episodes to that.
Mandalore.
Oh yes.
And Matt dubbed it Mandabore. Because we were like, holy crap, this was the first time we had gone to Mandalore
Right.
in the visual medium, in any sort of animation or any sort of motion picture. And we spent 4 episodes on politics and the poisoning of school children.
Oh no.
It was
Oh, no.
extremely bizarre, and it wasn't very good. Again,
was,
probably, just the good ones here, folks. That's the name of the show, just the good ones. Now, which brings us to today's show. And we are taking a cue directly from the Ahsoka season finale, because we saw one of our favorite characters, Baylan Skull, as he, of course, the unfortunately deceased Ray Peterson,
No.
looking out into the distance there on the planet of Peridia, and he's standing upon these very Tolkien, Lord of the Rings looking statues, which it blew my mind that this was the father, the son, and the daughter from the Mortis trilogy. And I was like, I can't believe they're doing that in live action. So we've decided to go back, and we're going to be talking about the season 3 episodes, Overlords, Altar of Mortis, and Ghosts of Mortis. Now we've all gone back recently and rewatched these episodes, and we're gonna kind of dig into them here a little bit. So
I've
I
lost
think,
all my notes. Can't find them, but I think I'll be all right.
but you got them in your head, surely.
I had to write them out, so they're in there somewhere.
So I'm curious, and I'm sure Brian and Matt are curious, Lindsey, as this sort of was your introduction to the Clone Wars proper.
Yep.
Now we did all talk about Tales of the Jedi, which came out last year, which was your intro to this style of animation. But what are your top level thoughts?
I liked it a lot. Obviously, we're watching the good ones, so I feel like I was set up for success. I did notice how, and I think it's like good and bad with this like animated half-hour format. There's no wasted time. It's thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and everything's happening and everything's important. But also, it felt a little not rushed, but like stuff that I feel like Ahsoka or The Mandalorian or any of these other shows would take a whole season to do. Or half a season even. This was like 30 minutes, pop, 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 it's done.
Yeah, super compressed.
Yeah.
Very compressed. But I also think they wrote it really well, so it doesn't feel like it doesn't make sense. I was like, oh, they just don't care about the logistics of traversing this planet at all. They go from one place to another place in absolutely no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was good too. But with these episodes, they did a really good job in the Clone Wars overall of doing 2 or 3 episode arcs, it seemed like. And, the done that a little bit with Bad Batch too, but it seems like, Clone Wars really kind of set the tone for that. And that's what's nice. You can go back and look at them in, 60, 70 minutes and
watch it as one. I
check it
noticed the
out.
first one felt like it ended. You wouldn't even know there was about to be another one that had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I was
because-
like, I know it must because of what we're doing, but I was like, oh, bye. I guess they're done.
Yes, and that's something I had forgotten because I've only seen this arc like maybe once since it was first aired. And I didn't recall that the first episode ended with them just peacing out and heading back into space.
Anakin's like, actually, I don't care about anything you're saying, and this is all dumb, and I don't care. Bye.
Bye.
Mhm.
And then they're quickly disabused of that. But
Yep.
yeah, it's interesting that what you say, Lindsay, about the sort of the very staccato boom, boom. Here we go.
Like what you just said, and very quickly, they're like, actually, psych, you're not leaving the planet. When the brother is just on their ship, Ahsoka
There he is.
pieces out what's not the Navy SEALs, like SEAL Team 6, I don't know, whatever
Yeah.
they're called, like drops from the sky in the
Mhm.
clouds. They're gone, and it's like, turn around, Ahsoka got, and everyone's like, well, what? How? What? Just now?
Yeah.
And that happens in like 30 seconds.
Exactly. But actually, I think this 3 episode arc actually gets a little more time to breathe than some of the other episodes of this series, certainly. But
Yeah, I'd be interested to see other single episode arcs where it's like all
where
done
where
in
it's
27 minutes.
okay, some of those we probably won't be watching because they involve looking for cake ingredients.
Oh, right, of course.
And but hey Matt, I'm curious about your thoughts revisiting Mortis all these years later.
Well, by the time this came around in season 3, I'm not saying that the show was getting repetitive in that sense, but this was kind of like a real departure from the standard episode and a little bit of a breath of fresh air. And I thought the writing was excellent. But I'll tell you, I have an opinion I'm gonna drop at the end of this episode about this trilogy. But what I will say is that I really enjoyed it. It's fascinating lore to get into. And it's nice to be able to take a step back from the Jedi Council and from, the Jedi missions and the standard Clone Wars rigmarole, and just to put them out there and just to give the fans a little more like breadth of what the Force means and what it has out there. And because it's a big universe, and it's nice to kind of get away and explore something completely new. And this trilogy was something completely different. And it was interesting. But I'll finish this out later with my real opinion on what I think about it. But that said, we should start talking about it.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's certainly, I think, one of the most, up to that point, was one of the most unusual Star Wars stories, because, at that time, they had never really delved into anything like this. I mean,
I thought I was wondering that. I was like, this world design, this, like, all of this looks sick. And I was like, have they been doing this whole show? It doesn't seem like they do big, expansive set pieces that they feature,
Mhm.
like all this ancient stuff. Like
Well-
lots of different places, like the tower, the monastery, there's all
Mhm.
these like great. I was like, this is all just for one arc, all these amazing looking
Well,
places.
the thing about the Clone Wars is that this show originally aired on Cartoon Network, and it was 100% financed out of George Lucas's pocket. So he didn't care because, he's a gazillionaire. So he was spending, this money on every episode. And you could see it as the show went on, it just got better and better. And you'd actually saw, once Rebels started, Rebels was the first Disney produced animation of the Star Wars era, and you could tell that there was no longer a billionaire funding this show and throwing money at it every week. They were like, well, we don't have limitless funds to do this. But yeah, I thought the first thing, and I think I had forgotten this, that the thing that jumped out at me was Liam Neeson returned.
I wrote that in my notes I can't find, but I know I did. I was like, is that his real? That's Liam Neeson. Everyone else,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
actually, I haven't really listened to the voice actors for Obi-Wan and Anakin for this show, but I think they do a really good job. But I did notice the moment it was Liam Neeson. I was like, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he returned, and I remember it was kind of a big deal at the time that he came back and did this little part. But it's interesting that you know this is the first time we really see him in his spirit form, and I think it's sort of inferred that he's able to appear like that because he's on this super concentrated force planet. And it looks like they're in a cave full of crystals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kyber crystals, perhaps?
That's what I assumed it
Perhaps.
was.
Yes.
It's just forcey, McForced stuff everywhere.
Yes. Absolutely. And but at the end of the day, I don't know if we're meant to believe that that this is something that actually occurred, like did Anakin or did Obi-Wan really talk to Qui-Gon?
Because everyone else was fake.
Yes. And
I wonder that too.
another film person reprising their role was Pernilla August, who was Shmi Skywalker. Anakin's mother. She came back to voice that little bit where the son was trying to trick Anakin.
Yeah, that's
So-
cool. I didn't pick up on that.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that either.
that
She
was
does
her
have a very,
voice.
she does have a very
I
specific
can go back and watch that now.
accent and way of speaking, and I did think, I just thought, oh, they're doing good. Shmi,
Shmi, yes,
Not
Shmi.
not Smee from
No,
Peter
not
Pan.
not Peter
Hook-
Pan.
Peter Pan.
Yeah,
When this whole trilogy started, they were in space and they got a distress call that was like ancient, like Jedi or ancient, like
yeah, 2,000
Mhm.
years
2,000
old.
years old.
Yeah.
And you know what it reminded me of when they came upon the structure in space was that episode from the original Battlestar Galactica
Where they
where they encountered the light,
that like the obelisk light thing.
right?
Yeah, I can see that.
and then they
yeah.
wound up in it. That so because it's kind of like in a different dimension thing,
Yeah.
but I thought I liked the device to get him out of there, but I'm curious. They never really got into what that structure was, right?
No,
Yeah.
and that's the only time we see it is when they're kind of entering it.
Which, by the way, that might be the way they get off the planet. But I'm just saying.
And Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
Mhm.
Oh, well, see, and here's something else that I thought. After Ahsoka, rewatching Mortis, a lot of this stuff didn't seem so strange to me anymore. Like
Mhm.
not at least not back in 2010 when I watched this for the first
Mhm.
time, because they're talking about they can't pinpoint where they are. They don't even know if they're in their own galaxy.
Right.
And
Yeah, that didn't ping me at all as being unusual, anything that was happening, because I think because I've consumed so much like Star Wars stuff that has all this stuff happening
Mhm. And-
outside of the movies, I was just like, oh yeah, more ancient Jedi crap.
Yeah, and
And
then they're
I
only
love it.
gone for a few seconds.
Right.
Mhm.
yes,
For the listeners that haven't watched the Clone Wars, what we're talking about is when they get to Mortis, they encounter these beings: the father, the son, and the daughter. And the son is kind of like the embodiment of the dark side. The daughter is the embodiment of the light side, and the father is the balance in the
Mhm.
center that's kind of keeping them in line. And it likewise it kind of keeps the universe in place, and the universe doesn't fall into disbalance, unbalance. And it's interesting because you see there's this kind of like the son wants the father's approval, but wants to take over the father's position. The daughter is trying to stop this, but and you don't know, even the daughter, you don't know who you can trust and where this is going. And the father has to step down, right? He's
dying.
he's dying,
Yeah.
and he shows Anakin everything that he is going to be, saying, I need you. His intention is telling Anakin that you're going to replace me, that you are the chosen one. It gives him basically the entire prophecy of who he is, and then erases his memory.
Well, he says you're the chosen one, stay here to bring balance
Right.
and basically babysit my kids while I go die forever.
Yeah.
That
He's
sounds
like-
terrible.
And he's like, no.
Oh,
So I think he remembers that. I think he erases his memory of just like the literal vision of
What
becoming
happens.
Darth
The one that
Vader.
the son
Yeah.
gave him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he keeps like because later when he's like, I have to get his blessing to leave, because I think he knows that guy still wants him the father still wants him to stay.
well, okay. So hold on. I'm sorry, Brian, real quick. So so if he remembers this stuff, just for a hot minute, think about how Vader, with that knowledge that this planet existed, would have been probably hell bent, desperate
find it
to
again?
get back there and get that power of Mortis.
Maybe he did. He was doing
Maybe.
a lot of stuff in 30 years. We don't know
Yeah,
everything he
Maybe.
was doing.
I'm just
He
saying,
was
it's like
chasing Obi-Wan for a while. That distracted him.
that's kind of a big chunk of knowledge to have in
That's
your
so
back
true.
pocket.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting side note to that. And if you remember, the filmmaker Colin Trevorrow originally wrote episode 9 of the movies, and he was let go. But one of the things that was in his script was Kylo Ren looking for Mortis.
Oh. Interesting.
So he brought it back to that. But but as far as Vader being obsessed with finding it, you got to think, I mean, it is sort of this place that exists, out of space time, and it's not it's not something I guess you could just.
It looks like it finds you, like you
Yeah,
can't really find it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I kind of thought that, watching this again and thinking about episode 3 in particular, he has the visions of Padme and things like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, what if those weren't really force visions, but they were more residual visions from what he was shown by the son?
That's
like
possible.
In his subconscious.
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I mean, it certainly could be. It could probably be that if you wanted it to be that. Obviously, the easy answer is this was written 6 years after Revenge of the Sith, but that's kind of interesting to think about. But I do like the Anakin we see after he's been shown that stuff, because he's all, freaked out with the eyes and
The Sith eyes, the yellow
Yes.
Sith eyes.
Yeah, he's Darth Vader Anakin.
but he's still he feels he doesn't like what he's seen.
And it's interesting that the son, and I was really trying to get a handle on, I'm like, okay, they're not like embodiments of the Force. They just like are really connected to it. And the son is like going more onto the dark side, but he doesn't want Anakin to become Darth Vader, and he wants to like help him like kill the Emperor and like prevent all of that. So I'm like, what is he?
There's that
what's he
allure,
doing?
right? The righteousness of the dark side, right? It's like, Darth Vader, like we're gonna make the world a better place. The universe is gonna be a better place because of what we do. The dark side doesn't approach it as like, it's like it's their order. They're gonna bring order to the galaxy.
Although I think you could definitely say, Palpatine is evil.
Of course he is.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying the pitch, I should say, of the dark side is always like,
Yeah, it was like he was saying, I'm
With
the
us.
real dark side. That's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Palpatine
Yeah.
is doing it wrong.
yeah.
Well,
Sucks.
did you notice the son was voiced by Sam Witwer,
yes.
who later, of course, he's also voiced Palpatine for Lucasfilm, and he was Darth Maul's voice. If you listen to his dialogue, there is so much in his dialogue where he's sort of echoing the stuff that Palpatine says or stuff that Vader has said. It's subtle, but it's there. I mean, sometimes it's not subtle. He just basically says a Palpatine line. And I thought that was, if I remember specifically when I first watched it, I was like, I thought that was a really neat touch. And Sam Witwer put an inflection on it, so maybe a little Palpatine in there,
Mhm.
you know, as he was talking.
He feels like it almost looked like him. So I feel like
Yeah.
it'd be easy to cast him to play him
Yeah.
in Ahsoka.
Well,
we
well,
probably talked about this with Ahsoka. I'm just caught up now, so
well, well, so one thing that was a big deal at the time Clone Wars was airing was everybody was like, well, Ahsoka's got to die. You know, she's not, where is she? You know, why is she not,
right.
why is she not in all the later movies? What happened to her? Well, in this episode or these episodes, they did that. And I remember watching it going, is this how it happens? And I thought it was pretty very well done scene. When, you know, she just basically is, he just taps her on the
Yep.
forehead and she's done.
Mhm.
And you know, then, you know, Anakin goes crazy, and you know, he sort of, well, is it Anakin that gets
Yeah,
her,
he's like the
conduit?
He's like the
yeah,
conduit.
he's the conduit.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not luck. I mean, it's lucky for Ahsoka that the brother killed the sister because
Mhm.
otherwise
Oh, by the way.
Ahsoka would have just been dead.
yeah.
So speaking of the brother killing the sister, because she put herself in between the blade and the father. Was it the dagger of Mortis? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The dagger of Mortis is what I think Balin is after. I think that's what he's trying to find.
Who's he
I-
trying to find it
I don't know,
for to
but
use against? I
I
wonder.
think that's what he's after. I think he wants the dagger.
There may
Well,
be a certain level of power or something.
Yeah,
you can
I think
wield with
I
that.
think that's where we're gonna go with. That's my theory.
well,
We'll see if it pans out.
there's no way they put that at the end of the season and don't plan to involve Mortis in some way. I think in the episodes they actually said, Ahsoka was saying, "Well, I see this flashing light up on the hill." She said something that immediately reminded me of what was happening in this
Right.
Ahsoka finale,
Oh yeah,
where
absolutely.
he's looking at this mysterious light way off in the distance, and he's like, you know, that's what he's after. That's what he's
Yeah, I
sensing.
forgot Ahsoka says that at the very beginning. Like
And that
she
was-
says she sees something and they don't see it.
And that was the
Something like that.
altar of Mortis, right? That's the altar, that flashing light. That's where they were going.
It may be because they at that point they were quite far. I mean, as far as geography matters
Yeah.
Yeah,
in this.
it takes them like I'm telling you. There's
Well,
like no time.
Well, it was weird because, you know, it turned from day to night, and the seasons would change kind of around the time of day.
Yes,
They were-
and but like when Anakin catches back up with them after they ran away, like way earlier, I was trying to track like the geography and the time and when people left and when, and I was like, I have to give this up because
Yeah,
You're
I
dealing
don't-
with cartoon
doesn't matter.
physics.
Yeah.
Cartoon physics doesn't matter.
no, I was like, there's no way he can make it back before and I was no, he's back. He made it.
Yeah, they probably didn't stay true to that first episode as far as the seasons changing.
yeah,
Like, it's just
like
like
that.
it's a magical planet. Maybe
Yeah.
the land
Right,
is
right.
teleporting.
Well,
all around.
Obi-Wan alluded to it too, that it was that he couldn't get a beat on it, I guess. You know.
yeah. And I think it's interesting too that, you know, Obi-Wan was here. You know, Obi-Wan, he was I mean, he wasn't quite just a bystander, but he definitely seemed like between, you know, Anakin and Ahsoka, he was almost the odd man out.
Yeah,
Like,
he was just there to kind of grumble
and he's like, you know,
grumble about
going,
stuff.
yeah, but it's interesting that he was there with them when all this stuff was going on. Something I did enjoy was sort of the mechanic Ahsoka. I don't know, it's just a little side thing when
I like
she's in the ship, and you know, she's fixing everything.
got the
and-
glasses on and the
She fell asleep in the, in the
Yeah.
engine. That was really cute.
Yeah, that was good stuff. And
So let me ask you: are the episodes normally Ahsoka and Anakin teaming up, and Obi-Wan normally with them?
No, I mean, I'd say there's plenty of episodes that just focus on Obi-Wan.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
really
Okay. I was just
a-
wondering. The
as a
rest of the
series.
show.
I mean, the Clone Wars. One of the advantages is that they sort of had just a kind of a what they could do whatever they wanted to. I mean, there
Mhm.
were plenty of Anakin and Ahsoka episodes, but there were also Anakin and Obi-Wan episodes, and
Yeah.
it's actually through the Clone Wars that I really started that really made me buy into their friendship. Because you get some joking around in Revenge of the Sith, but it's hard to believe in just that film that they're supposed to be like brothers.
Mhm.
But I think the Clone Wars really painted a nice picture of that because they had more time and you kind of got to see that relationship a little more.
Yeah, watching the Clone Wars, I always, just any episode or whatever, I always kind of looked at it as building blocks toward episode 3.
Mhm.
That's always kind of how I looked at it. That was, the main driver of what gets you from point A to point B.
And I can see we're watching that the whole time. You'd be like, "Oh, so where's Ahsoka?
Well,
What happens to
right.
Ahsoka?"
You're absolutely right, Brian, about saying that. And I think that's actually, and not that I ever disliked the Clone Wars, but I think it felt that it was spinning its wheels a lot where you wanted to get that story like closer to
Yeah.
the finish line. And it's like, oh, we have another episode of whatever going on wherever that doesn't pan out or ever gets talked about again.
Mhm.
And it just felt like they had a good thing going with the Clone Wars, and they're like, we're just going to stretch it out and keep it going as long as we
Mm.
can. And as a Star Wars fan, you're just like, I just start connecting dots. I want to get
Mhm.
closer and
Yeah.
closer to the finish line.
Now,
And then you get little nuggets here and there, and it'd be like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And,
I think season 7 was really kind of fulfilled the promise of that when they
Yes.
Yeah.
finally made it to Revenge of the Sith and beyond,
Yes.
which Lindsey we'll be talking about. Don't worry. But
The
they
whole season, baby.
well, except for the cow pie sisters.
No,
What?
we have to talk about
What?
cow
yeah.
pie.
I'm
You
We
can skip
sorry.
those. Those
cannot-
those don't fall in, just the good ones.
You can't leave cow pie out.
There was this character in season 7. It looked like she just had a big pile of cow manure on her head.
The characters
okay.
were
Do you
actually
remember this
pretty
character's name?
They were the Martez sisters.
Wow.
And what's great about that episode is it's really actually great Ahsoka episode that you have to kind of put up with some
Oh
moderately
no.
silliness with that.
You see it, don't you?
That's just the problem with the animation style.
I mean, it's
tragic.
legit.
What
It
they're
looks-
trying to do with her hair.
It's a cow pie on her head.
Yes.
Aw.
Well,
The other sister's hair looks great.
that's something in the Clone Wars. It got better as the show
Their
went
hair
on.
all the hair lacks a texture. I was thinking
Well-
about honestly about Anakin's hair when they were like shots from behind him. I was like, he's got like a weird. He looks like Sonic the Hedgehog.
And
The
Obi-Wan's beard looks like a block of wood.
They
Yeah.
look like Lego people.
Yeah.
a little
Yes.
But that does soften a bit in the later seasons. They start actually moving their hair
Yeah.
around.
bit. Oh,
And
animating the hair.
The
Wow.
animation gets better every season.
It absolutely does. Yes.
Yeah.
They even
Um,
change kind of stylistically too.
It evolves.
Like-
It all evolves.
I feel like I could see that just from this and remembering the clips I saw of the season 7 episodes that I saw. I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh, totally.
I can see where this started and where it got
You
better.
know what's funny about this trilogy of episodes is that when I was watching them, I really expected more of it later,
Mhm.
more Mortis type things
Oh,
later
yeah.
to come, and it never did until the end of Ahsoka, and then there it is.
They really didn't get into the higher plane of the Force until Rebels, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
With the
with
world between worlds.
Worlds,
yeah.
And
So-
if you notice in this Mortis trilogy, a lot of the floor of the
Yeah.
temple, that is all straight up from the world between worlds. That kind of like
Yep.
celestial design and
Yeah.
everything. That's something that's carried over.
it's also like a giant yin yang.
Yes, yes, for the balance.
Yeah.
Now, and so you know, when the show was done, I mean, when I originally watched it, I thought that all this, it was a very interesting idea. And I think, Matt, this may be where you're going.
Oh,
Um, that, you know, at the time, and I mean, probably still feel this way, but I thought that the story of Anakin as presented in the films was fairly straightforward to me. Like the prophecy, balance to the force. He's eventually going to fulfill his destiny and be saved by his son Luke and destroy Palpatine. But um I just part of me felt like they tried to um maybe put a little too much in the soup. Like d is Anakin really tied to this very cosmic spiritual realm that's not even probably physically existing anywhere? Um, and I thought they got into that with, they actually embodying, you know, the Father, the balance, and the darkness and the light, literally making them children of this, the one. Um,
but was he? So he was the like Neo, like he was the previous one, and he's got like what happens when he doesn't exist anymore? Because he doesn't die. He's still like he's still around when they leave.
mhm.
I was like kind of thinking what you're thinking. I was like, so they're not the Force. That's what I was saying earlier. They're not made from it. They're from him.
Mhm.
Where's mom? Unclear. So like they're just really strong and like tied to both sides of the Force. Then they
Mhm.
die, and he's like, this is gonna result in some chaotic stuff happening,
Mhm.
i.e., all of the movies. And
Yes.
I was like, so if Anakin had just stayed and babysit these kids forever, that's what was supposed to happen? I don't know.
Well, so Matt, I'm curious. You said at the beginning of the episode that you had some things to say.
Yeah, I mean, let me pull my book out of my life of where I became a jackball Star Wars fan. And you know what it is? And I've mentioned this before on some episodes. When the prequels came out, uh, I mean, I watch them now much more fondly, with much more nostalgia than I did when they were out, because I was a jerk Star Wars fan and I had critiques like everyone else did. I'm much happier with them now. But there are some things that about the prequels that I'll never like, and one of them is the midi-chlorians,
Uh-huh.
because and this is kind of ties into the Mortis trilogy. I, as a Star Wars fan, as a purist Star Wars fan, I don't like the Force explained too much to me. I like a lot of mystery around the Force. It's part of the allure of what the first three movies really were. And the more they get into explaining the details of how the Force works and the mechanisms of it, the overlords of the Force, whether the battle between good and evil is always going to be played out, and the daughter and the son are going to always be killing each other, and in this constant cycle of good versus evil. I don't necessarily want that much information about the Force. I like to be left a little more in the, it's just out there, and it's a magical thing that exists, that it just happens to be there. So just like the midi-chlorians, uh the Mortis episodes just kind of chip away at me as a Star Wars fan, in terms of like how much of that childhood love, of that instant mystery of holding your hand out and trying to move an object in your room because it's the Force. I don't need the Force given that much detail. Does that make sense?
Yes.
100%.
So that's, and not that I didn't enjoy this. I think they're actually really good episodes and they're really fascinating. I just don't particularly, as a purist Star Wars fan, want that much information about the Force.
I think they could have made some really small adjustments to this to keep it that, like, keep it mysterious and keep it, and it's make them not like tied to the universe, the brother and sister. Like maybe they're just really strong. They have a lot of control over it, but they specifically don't influence what happens to it.
Yeah. And
that's where I was like, why do they have
up to this point in Star Wars? I think, and Brian, Jared, keep me honest here. I don't think that we have met just a basic Force sensitive being in that sense that is able to like utilize the Force but not be a Jedi or a Sith up to this point. Like this is our first kind of experience of other kinds of Force powers. Now
closest would be Chirrut in Rogue One, I would think, with the way he could. But
yeah,
I mean,
this is way before that. This is way before that. So and I think Rebels did a good job because Rebels kind of introduced beings that are Force sensitive, that have nothing to do with being a Jedi, like Force Buffalo.
What about the Dathomir witches?
Yeah, they came after this though. No, they were introduced before. There was an episode. Yeah, you're right. They are Force sensitive,
and they're sort of like uncorrupted. But obviously, I know they're villainous in a lot of the stuff that they've been in. But from what I've only seen them in the video game I played and the one.
But I will say,
good person. So I just mean they're not like easily corrupted by the dark side.
And they really are super witchy. I mean, it's not like they are traditional Force kind of things. They're like they're full on witch. They have like the spells and the.
It feels like a different, new, mysterious thing that you don't get an explanation about. It's just they got magic.
Right. It's like their magic. It's right. It's like, I don't really, it's even though it's Force, it's dark side. It's almost like you're right. It's like they're magic. It's not that they're like Sith or bad guys. They're magic. But anyways, that's my kind of like 2 cents on going down those kinds of exploratory plots of the Force. It always kind of slightly rubs me the wrong way as an old school Star Wars fan.
Brian, what are your thoughts on your high level thoughts on the Mortis trilogy?
It's always been one of my favorites. Ever since, watching all the Clone Wars and everything, especially up to that point. I mean, that was like when I saw those 3 episodes, it was kind of like the pinnacle because of all the foreshadowing and and all the things in that. Even when I was watching it last night with my wife in the room, she goes, "Boy, there's a lot of foreshadowing in this." There's a ton of it, and I really like how they kind of tie those things in, even though they may not be connected in a way. It's kind of disconnected from the rest, but I don't know. It's just really cool how they do all that and make it all kind of tie together, even though it's a little bit disconnected. I mean, you could almost think it was like a fever dream sequence of the 3 of them.
Right, they're tripping inside that.
It's a very
right.
Ship and they come out and they're like, "Oh."
Yeah, it's like a very Wizard of Oz type situation. Like they wake up and they're like, Captain Rex is like, "You're just gone for 3 seconds," and I think one of the things, just real quick, I really enjoyed the music in these episodes. They, of course, they sprinkled in some of the Imperial March here and there, and I think they did use a lot of John Williams stuff in this, which they didn't always do in the Clone Wars, because I think they have to cut Mr. Williams a check every time they use his stuff. But they did use the Force theme. But I thought one of the main pieces of music in this was it started as the Force theme and then went in kind of a different direction, like da 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 da. They did it. They took it somewhere else.
It took you to church, man.
Well, but I like the music, and this is also where the show season 3 really started to come into its own as far as getting a more polished look, and better stories.
Yeah.
And that's it's interesting to watch and interesting to think, these were the days when I think George and Dave Filoni were, working together pretty, like every day. And you really see now, years later, um, Dave Filoni kind of picking up what they put down all these years ago and going to run with it. I mean, we just heard that, along with the announcement of the Mandalorian movie, their season 2 of Ahsoka is in pre-production now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm interested to see where it goes. But I think before we close it out, Lindsay, you're, um, this is your first, I guess, official Clone Wars trilogy. Um, what do you what do you what did you enjoy, and what do you maybe hope to see as we continue?
I enjoyed Ahsoka. I feel like
Yeah.
obviously I never got to see as much of the goofy side of her that you guys referenced when we watched the Ahsoka show, because obviously she's not very goofy in that show.
Yeah.
So I liked seeing goofy Ahsoka, especially when she got like possessed. She was like extra goofy.
Mm.
She was
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
she was super snarky.
oh, like she was like being very
Yeah.
silly. It was really funny.
Oh,
I just like I always, when I first saw the prequels, I always was like, how did we skip the best part, which was Anakin and Obi-Wan becoming BFFs? Like, how do we just skip all of that?
mhm.
And how am I going to care about them betraying each other when I'm like, I don't even, they were fighting last time. They were like at odds last time I saw them in
Mhm.
episode 2. And he, like, Obi-Wan never wanted to train him. Like, he wasn't interested in anything to do with Anakin, really. And
Mhm.
suddenly they're best friends. So I feel like I really like getting to see them. Even though this particular trilogy, I feel like Obi-Wan was just grousing on him like the whole time. But it's like, but I like seeing them together. So I'm
I
excited.
I thought, one thing we forgot to talk about was the vision of the adult Ahsoka looked quite different.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
I know
Yes.
she had like the super,
The-
it's not hair, but like,
Yeah.
The tails were like down to her knees.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, we can write that off. Those kyber crystals were really working.
They didn't get everything
overtime.
right.
Yeah. But
Yeah. That seems
uh,
logistically like a problem when you have a lightsaber, 2 lightsabers.
Yeah,
I mean, she
like-
might get a head tail job sometime. You never know.
Oh.
yeah, you could, maybe just a
Like a haircut.
a nip and a tuck there.
You know,
But go
I
ahead,
think
Brian.
there's a future lesson for Obi-Wan in this. Because when he's talking to the father at that one point where they're sitting there at the ship,
Mhm.
and the father tells him not to interfere, and they can't interfere with Anakin and the son, and then Obi-Wan's like, I've got to go interfere, and he
Mhm.
takes off. Well, you think ahead to Empire Strikes Back, and Obi-Wan telling Luke, he's like, I can't interfere. And it was a really nice, bringing together of those two things. And may have, that, well, because Obi-Wan basically failed, when he
Yeah.
went to help Anakin. I mean, he got,
Mhm.
the son got the jump on him and,
Mhm.
knocked him out, basically. So,
Yeah, when Anakin just throws his speeder into the lava, for
Yeah.
some reason it cracked me up.
See,
It's just like,
Yeah, because it's like,
you're
bloop.
stuck here in Hades with this.
like, sorry,
Sorry about you, but I'm taking off. Don't worry about it. It'll be
that's-
okay later.
that's what I'm talking about the pacing. Like, Obi-Wan, no, I'm gonna go. He goes there. Anakin throws his speeder in the lava. Anakin's gone.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's alone. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that was that's a good. I didn't put that together, Brian.
That
I
is
mean,
good. That
you're
is
way
good.
smarter than me, so
Shoot.
it's good to get those perspectives.
Well, going to the, I know we're wrapping this up, but going to the end of the Ahsoka show where we see the big statues,
Mhm.
father is still very present. The son statue is very, very much detailed and ominous, but the daughter's is chipped away and fallen apart.
Mhm.
I don't know. We know that the daughter died in the Mortis trilogy, but what does Balin have ahead of him there? The
Mhm.
son is now, alive and well, waiting for another person to corrupt. I mean, I don't know. And I'll tell you this, I trust in Dave Filoni. You know, if anyone can steward the stories correctly, it's him. I think he speaks, you know, and acts with a true Star Wars fan's heart. And I would like to think that he's going to bring it together and make it really work. So, you know, my doubts and my dislikes about these Force topics, I'm hoping he makes me as a Star Wars fan really love what he did, because this
like
is
buy into
the
whatever
long
they're gonna do
game
with it.
here. Yeah, this is the long game with this storyline. So I'm hoping this arc really pays off, because the Ahsoka show we all really liked and enjoyed.
And didn't we talk about a little how Ahsoka keeps seeing that like white owl, and she's been seeing it since this, you said, since this happened to her from this trilogy, so that she's kind of probably got a little bit of the sister.
She's touched.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where,
because I mean, it's
she
essentially
ends up
the
stuck.
sister's life force is what saved her, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
I feel like if she's on that planet and Balin's on that planet and she finds the brother, I don't know.
That's probably where some of her seriousness comes from.
maybe
His sister.
That sister was very
She was kind of straight-laced.
we still do have 4 years left of the show, and you know, Ahsoka is she is. I think she is, though. She does. There is definitely Ahsoka before Mortis and Ahsoka after Mortis, and there's a lot of interesting Ahsoka episodes to come. But I thought, and you know, I'm certainly not trying to steer the direction of this show, but the next episodes I would like to do, and Lindsey, we're not always going to be like maybe going chronologically. Because the next episode I'd like to talk about is called Monster, and it is involving our good friends, the witches of Dathomir,
Savage Opress,
and could in fact be the beginning of the return of Darth Maul.
Okay.
The Darth Maul storyline in Clone Wars is still one of the great Star Wars stories, I think.
I'm excited about that. I have heard that through the, you know, the Star Wars osmosis.
And I think that the Savage Opress Darth Maul witches story, it does go over the course of several episodes and several seasons. But I actually watched this with my dad a couple years ago, sort of in sequence, just this storyline. And it works out. I mean, and it plays really well. I mean,
I like that.
Because you don't have to sort of know where you are. Like, okay, what's going on? What's Anakin doing? Because this is a story that is very Obi-Wan heavy. And so I thought we would start with maybe a few of those episodes for our next Just the Good Ones.
Why don't we map out each of those episodes, how many there are? I don't recall. And
because, well, the Maul stuff goes right up to the finale.
Right. I think we should map them all out and maybe condense them into one big watch. Not us, but like, you know, we'll just depends
on how many there are, probably, for us to, maybe that would be like.
Oh no,
it's up to you guys.
We're not going to watch it right here on this thing, but I'm just saying. Let's map it out, because you're right. That's a good story.
How many at once?
It's that or the Zero storyline.
Oh, cool. That sounds great, Matthew. I like that.
I feel like now we have to watch one of those.
Yeah, you might have to.
Okay.
You've done the impression too good.
Oh, Lindsey. Well, thank you. I think you really like it.
It's spot on. It really is.
Yes.
Oh man, how did they not make a Zero the Hutt action figure?
Right?
Did they not miss the boat there?
They did.
They don't know what the people really want.
No.
They made everything. They made every Clone Wars action figure except for that.
They're afraid. They're afraid of me.
At Star Wars Land at Disney, they finally have a little BD-1 robot at the robot store.
Oh, do they?
They do.
That's the one from the game, right?
Yes. And an episode of Ahsoka.
Oh, that's right.
They have everything else except Zero the Hutt.
They have robes from the holiday special, but they don't have Zero the Hutt.
It's Zero the holiday special Chewbacca.
Zero the Hutt.
I don't mean bother. Just nicely ask enough Star Wars employees at the Disneyland place, and
I'll
it'll get back to them.
You know where they keep the zero stuff? Like him.
He would have been he would have been right at home in the holidays.
They would have looked at you like you were a crazy person.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pay $500 for a scale model of zero.
Is it supposed to be like Boss Hog? Is that
I don't know.
Like-
It's kind of like that.
like
I
a
mean,
questionable lifestyle Boss Hog?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh man, a senator in this neighborhood?
Okay.
It's so bizarre.
Okay, we have to cut this off because I think
You just
my-
keep doing that forever.
my wife's like right next door trying to sleep, I think, and I'm in here going.
That's not going on.
Anyway, so this is going to continue. This will be a semi-regular show because there's so much to talk about, and it's always a pleasure to get this crew together and talk about Star Wars, and it's fantastic. So cloning it in, just the good ones, will continue very soon as we take a look at Monster and the beginning of the Darth Maul Resurrection Saga. So until then, everybody, may the Force be with you, and we'll see you next time.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.